Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Great to be here. Thanks, Jim.
Mark, do we have a special offer for our listeners?
We do, and we also have a new newsletter that we're launching that I'd like to talk about. I think I mentioned last week, but the promo code is 2021 half off, 2021 half, HALF off, and that is the promo code you stick in the slot when you open one of the order forms, and you get 50% off, and you go to VRTrader.com. And last year we had tremendous success, and it was sort of a little bit of an experiment, though I've known about it for many years, as many of our listeners do. It's called the January effect, where often into the end of the year, stocks that are way oversold or not doing as well are subject to tax loss selling, and they tend to sell off. I mean, one category that just comes to mind is the cannabis stocks, which have been in a downtrend here for the last few months, and pretty depressed, and maybe that would even accelerate into the end of the year if they don't start turning around pretty quick. So, but just as a tendency for a bounce in oversold stocks after the tax loss selling is out of the way into January. So we picked about 10 names last year, and they're just extraordinary returns. I'm talking about in the 30-day period, anywhere from 20 to 80% return on some of these stocks just on a bounce. It's like a trade, we're not in it long term, but they're oversold, and some were so oversold they bounce as much as 40 to 80% just after their big sell-off. So we're creating a special year-end opportunity letter. I've never done this before, and we're going to put it together, and it'll be offered in the next 30 days. So something to keep an eye out for, and if the track record we had last year is any close to what we can reproduce here, hopefully. Of course, there's no guarantees, but hoping to find some nice tradable bounces. So anyway, those are the two commercials for the opening.
Now, we're very aware now of the Evergrande crisis. Bob Hoy, friend of the show, brought it up actually quite some time ago, where he was hearing rumblings about trouble in the Chinese real estate industry. But your sources are telling you there's more than just trouble in real estate, where there's 190 million vacant properties in China. That's never good in any real estate market. But now there's riots over food shortages. Of course, the Chinese government won't let us know about that. But you've heard that. What are the implications there?
Thousands. I'm hearing thousands of riots are not being reported, and their crop has not come in. I don't have all the exact numbers. There was a source I can pull up here that had some more specific numbers about, their crop was like 30% lower than expected, and it could be 50% lower this year or next year, and the Chinese are scrambling for food. You would just think they would want to buy more food from us, but the thought that I pulled out of this whole event was, we sit here worrying about Chinese, attacking the country, and that obviously they could try to take us over at some point. They've already done so on a certain level financially, but everybody's worried that there could be an EMP blasted over the United States, which would knock out our internet and or an atomic attack on the United States. And the point of this is that, if they really need the U.S. for food, they're not going to do anything to hurt us in that regard. They may do other things to subvert the country and try to take us over in other ways. But if we're a food basket for them, and other than just buying what they need, assuming they really want to just take us over and own all the agriculture here, my thought is, why don't they just buy it all up? But in any event, they've probably done some of that already. But we don't have to worry about, atomic attack or EMP, at least from China, because they need us for food. So I thought that was interesting, and also so interesting that they're having this big food crisis over there. So just something that came across my desk in a video, and from an interesting source, something to think about. There's other motivations here besides technology on their part.
Well, I know there's also a big worry that China will invade Taiwan. I guess we could just say to them, if you do that, then we stop food shipments to China.
Right. Well, everybody seems to think it's inevitable, but they've been talking about this for decades. So we'll find out. Some pretty smart people are saying it's likely to happen, and we're probably not going to do anything to stop it. But sort of, unbelievable. I mean, look at when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and senior President Bush put together a coalition of countries and military to save that little country. I guess the oil was very important to everybody, but you would think that the world would shore up and protect Taiwan's integrity, and they wouldn't let something like that happen unless they're all bought out by the Chinese. So it's sort of just an interesting thought about how this is all going to play out. Of course, Taiwan Semiconductor, the company, the stock, is the largest producer of semiconductors in the world. So you think if we want to protect our source of semiconductors, we would want China to take over Taiwan or Taiwan Semiconductor unless they're producing all the semiconductors and relocated their facilities here in the U.S. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not so sure if it's happening so fast, if at all.
Well, I guess the trade-off is China's going to say if we take Taiwan, you don't get computer chips, and we say you don't get potato chips.
Right. Good.
Or corn chips, or soybeans.
That's true. And those markets have done well due to shortages. We've talked about that. Of course, a lot of it's attributed to geocosmic events. I don't like to use the word climate change because I don't believe in it. So I think it's a fraud, but we all know that anyway. It's just basically planetary events that for thousands of years places get cooler or hotter. But we seem to be in this phase, the solar phase now, which will probably lead to a cooling of the planet over the next several decades, which could create other food issues too for agriculture if the planet cools down a little bit. I'm not so worried about it heating up, but we're in a solar I forget the exact phrase, diminished solar activity period coming up here. So in terms of the cooling of the planet could be another risk for us. But at the same time, we're always worried about those sudden solar flares. Just had one the other day when a lot of auroras were seen, and you mentioned there was one up in Vancouver that was noticed. So there's definitely some solar activity going on unrelated to the cooling or heating. And if one of those big solar flare blasts ever hits us, like the Carrington Event back in the 19th century, we could be wiped out. Our technology flipped out, frozen overnight. All the internet will be fried. So a lot of interesting stuff going out there. What we've learned, Jim, is the unexpected is the expected. You can make up stuff, the kind of things that have happened in the last few years. You can write a novel about the reality that actually unfolded. One of which, of course, was just off on a tangent, was just the exciting event of watching Bill Shatner go up in the Blue Origin spacecraft with Jeff Bezos yesterday. I had the fortune of meeting Shatner 3 years ago, and he had made a comment to me that and to others at the same time about his key to his physical health, because as you know, he's 90 years old, was that the fact that he eats a lot of broccoli. So, that affected me. I'm a big broccoli eater, but I think I've been eating more since I heard Shatner is eating it, and he's doing so great at 90 years old. So, but that was just an exciting event to watch yesterday, a little distraction from the stock market. So, just wanted to bring that up. I really admire him for, the legend he's created and his courage to go up in that spacecraft.
Perhaps Mr. Spock was even a bigger broccoli eater because he was green.
I guess so. But a lot of fun. I mean, that was a break during a market day. Of course, we had an exciting market day with the market up, but it was just one of those things. A good friend of mine who does astrological work, by the way, and I'm not an astrologer, even though I talk about the geocosmics. I listen to everything and everybody because I don't think one person knows anything, and particularly when you listen to the financial networks about stuff. So if Jim Cramer is telling you not to buy Dutch Brothers coffee, which is and the whole other subject we could talk about. It's one of the new issues that came out that I sort of favor and I've been trading. But in fact, you want to buy it today probably means it's a buy. So I generally try to avoid what the financial press is, the conventional stuff is talking about.
Yes, the Carrington event, if people are curious, it happened in September 1st and 2nd of 1859. Now, electronics weren't big back then. The only thing that was really electronic was telegraphs, but they were exploding across Europe and North America. The wires were fried. They didn't have circuit breakers back then. And if you recall the great New York blackout back in the 1960s, that was caused by a solar flare that knocked out all of the hydro stations in Quebec that supplied a lot of the power to New York. So we've had incidents like this in modern times. And coincidentally, 9 months after that event in New York, their birth rate skyrocketed.
Well, this is why I look at stuff like this, because people say, well, let's look at what the stock market is doing and what the banks are doing today, what interest rates are doing, and nobody's looking skyward to the solar system and realizing that we're a vulnerable planet, a vulnerable species. Things can change overnight. Look, China or others behind China, or whether it's China directly or not, try to kill off the world with this COVID flu that's still spreading around the planet. So maybe they want to kill us off so there'll be less people around and more food for them. Not just a passing thought, but in any event, looking skyward and seeing what's going on beyond the atmosphere might be well worth our time and effort. And there was even a story the other day about the asteroid situation, which I thought was fun. I mean, I always thought that we had the technology, or certainly could develop the technology, to redirect any asteroid that would be heading our way. And there was an article yesterday, I don't have all the details, about just such technology being discussed, where it doesn't take a lot of effort to redirect an asteroid because it's zero gravity. So a little kick at the rear end on an asteroid can redirect it in just about any place. And I think our technology is more than advanced to do that, because I'm a big believer in the secret space program and all the advanced technology that we're not told about, and it's probably what we're seeing in these UFO videos that have been released by the Pentagon and others, and even a lot of stuff we've seen over the years. Even though I'm not discounting there could be an extraterrestrial connection to it, many of it could be just advanced technology just not telling us about, and they're flying around and we're thinking it's the green men from Mars, when it could be our own spacecraft or a craft that's just doing exceptional things in the atmosphere and shaking up a lot of people who just can't deal with that type of technology. So we'll see. But as you mentioned, the Carrington event and other solar things we have to pay attention to. And we also have to pay attention to, in the increased volcanic and earthquake activity and all kinds of fun stuff that could affect climate and so forth. So it's just fun staying on top of these things. We hope they don't hit, but we can't be too surprised if they do.
Well, on the exploration of diverting an asteroid, that's exactly what they're going to do, is they're going to smash a satellite into a couple of little asteroids to see if they can divert their orbit. They say, of course, they're not a threat to Earth, and diverting their path won't be a threat to Earth, but then the best laid plans, who knows?
Right, in other words, they could kick it in the wrong way and then it heads right toward us.
Exactly.
Could happen. Listen, I think we're more advanced than that. People have laughed at me even on this broadcast, because the ability to get to the asteroid, and with all the valuable resources, minerals, gold, silver, and rare earths and stuff that apparently on some of these asteroids, I think we may already be out there mining some of it now. So we'll find out over time, because they're not telling us what they're doing out there. If they were doing it, we're not going to find out about it.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, there's a lot of talk of the Fed tapering all this quantitative easing. Is that going to happen? And if it does, what will it do?
You know, you saw the stock market, the Dow up over 500 points today. We had a correction, and now it looks like we're headed back up again, even though, the seasonals generally call for a low in September, October. There's probably the market's going to come down the way the bears are saying, I'm talking about a significant shakeout. It's going to be an outlier event. I don't think it's going to be the Fed. I mean, the Fed, can do certain things, but what type of interest rate hike are we really talking about? I mean, they're virtually zero now anyway, compared to interest rates that we saw in the last, 30 years, 25 years, it's really a joke. I mean, it's historically low rates. Companies are, making money because they can finance at very low rates. Low rates is good for the government debt because they have to pay interest on government debt, and it's not to the benefit of the government to raise rates where they can't, pay their own debt bills. So I think there's going to be a restraint on a certain level there as well. So we can't cover our own interest rate payments. That's not going to be very good unless they're going to do some type of reorganization of our currency and the financial structure. So I'm not making much of it. When I talk about it, it's like we're being distracted by things that are unimportant. For example, now you got a lot of supply chain issues. A lot of companies are raising prices because of this of the scarcity of certain materials stuff. As a result, they're actually making money, and that's reflecting in their earnings and the stock prices. So is this all going to end up negatively? And I don't think that's it. I think it'll be an outlier event, an asteroid, another COVID, a Carrington event, something we haven't even thought about. We can't imagine all these things. Yellowstone volcano blows up. How about that one? That would wipe out North America. They talk about the super volcano under Yellowstone. They've been talking about this for decades. I mean, something like that scale or some outlier event, that'll kill the market for sure, and it could affect the Earth's atmosphere and all kinds of fun stuff. So I think the market, is going to come down from, some type of other event, which we just can't put our fingers on besides the couple things that I mentioned casually. So a little uptick in interest rates, Jim, I don't know. I don't see, if companies were making money when interest rates were 6, 8, 10% a long time ago, why rates going from, 0.25% to 1%, let's say, even if it goes that far, why that would kill the world economy.
Yes, well, speaking of the Yellowstone supervolcano, the crater is 250 miles across. People don't realize that Yellowstone Park is one big volcanic crater.
Yeah, every time I go there, I keep thinking, is it going to blow up when I'm there or not? That's one way to... I've seen some videos of what it would look like, animated videos. I mean, it would just take out North America. I mean, it's the pollution, the graying of the skies, the effect on agriculture and weather. It's no small event. It would fry good third of the United States really fast if that happened. But that could be a million years away. Probably will happen, but we'll be like the dinosaurs, I guess, if that does.
What's going on with the U.S. dollar right now?
Well, it's just not going anywhere. I mean, it looks like it's going to rally, and then it sort of backs off, and it's just been in this, sideways pattern here. It upticks a little bit, and then gold, goes down, and then it goes down, and then gold goes up, and I just keep watching it. Is there really an uptrend in the U.S. dollar, or is it just like trading sideways here, contingent upon whether interest rates are going up or not going up? Now, it has sort of been inching higher in the last few weeks, and but not much higher. In other words, where the dollar was, looking at my chart now, let's see, where, back in March, for example. It's a little bit higher than it was in March, but not dramatically higher. And then it had a big sell-off before that. I'm not very good at, trying to predict it. I just sort of, try to trade it, but, it's seemingly trying to inch up a little bit. But what does that mean? I mean, I don't like tying markets together. People say, well, you have a weaker dollar that's good for commodity prices, but it really hasn't been good for gold and silver this past year, which have underperformed. Maybe we're the last and best horse in the glue factory, considering the financial problems and the currencies around the planet, including China and including the Europe and everything else, and maybe money's going into the dollar. But from what I really read, the best and safest currency long term is the Canadian dollar. I mean, I would think if I had owned one currency, I would be owner of Canadian dollars more than the U.S. dollar, frankly, on a bigger picture basis. But to answer your question, not much the money to be made in it. There are little trades in it. It's trying to trend higher. I don't know if it's going. This is the beginning of a big move or not, so I'm sort of neutral on it, but I'm looking at the chart and trying to figure out how to make money with it and what markets it's really affecting. I mean, look at it tried to inch up here in the last few weeks. I'm looking at the chart, but yet that should have been negative for crude oil because these markets are supposed to trade inverse to a strong dollar, but crude oil took off to new highs. So you're sort of scratching your head. What's the point of the question? In other words, if you're going to tie this inversely to gold, silver, crude oil, and certain commodities, some work and some don't in relation to the dollar. So that's of no value if you're a trader. So I'm wondering, what difference it really makes. And I think it frustrated a lot of the commodity bulls or bears figuring what the dollar is going to do and how it's going to affect those markets. And for the most part, it didn't have the effect that they thought it was going to have. So anyway, I think it's a moot point. It really doesn't affect my strategy or thinking. If soybeans are going down or crude oil is going up, or your natural gas, which went up big. Look at that market. Look at it from both a fundamental and technical point of view and decide, is it tradable and investable for both technical and fundamental reasons, and stop worrying where the dollar is.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
It's always fun, Jim. Thank you for having me.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as vrtrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.